Right. So this is what generally the payment architecture looks like whenever we are going to develop any solution for the customer requirements. As far as the solution of payments is concerned, understanding about the payment solution followed by the process and architecture is one of the key and important element we need to understand. In this regard, whenever we try to understand about the payment structure as well as the solution we are going to develop, there are different backend services should also be taken into consideration, because when we are developing application, these applications will be of three different layers. One is about the front end layer, where whatever the user interfaces and all everything will be created. The second is a backend layer, because this is where generally all the backend services will be involved, right? So when it comes to the backend services are concerned, especially when we are going to develop any uh, application and all, so there are different backend services which we have to be updated, right? So when it comes to the backend services are concerned, whenever we are developing a payment solution and all, so there are few points one has to be understood. As a business analyst, we need to understand these points. The first one about the automated user, right? So automated user and as well as merchant onboarding. Right, so merchant onboarding is one element we need to focus, right? So this is one thing, because nowadays most of the applications were cloud applications. Whatever the solutions we are developing, mostly on cloud solutions instead of on-premise. Advantage is that there is no infrastructural challenges won't be there, because operational cost, infrastructure investment, all these things will be reduced in this regard. This is what something which we have to be see whenever we are trying to develop a payment solution, especially in context to the architecture we are going to develop all that. So that's the reason why when it comes to the backend services, we need to create a backend service which must be an automated user and merchant onboarding. That is one thing. Next, we need to provide a service in context to the e-wallet as well, because providing an e-wallet is also one of the key element has to be focused, because e-wallet system we have to create. Next, we need to create some card payment, wherein whatever the card payment are we going to do, right? So card payment acquiring and as well as the clearing for merchants and all everything is also required. Right? So this is also one of the key and important element wherein we need to understand. So we need to understand even this as well, right? So this is also one of the key and important element in context to the backend services we have to be performed with. Next, we need to focus more on the affiliates management, because affiliates management is also one of the core backend services we have to provide when we are providing any payment solutions for the customer, etc. All that, right? So affiliates management is something. Next, we need to focus on the e-shop integration, because if there is any kind of payments, especially in context to the e-shopping, right? So happening and all that integration has to be done. Next, we need to focus more on the payment switch. This is also one of the core and important service we have to be focused whenever we are developing any solutions record, right? So payment switch is also one thing. Next, we need to develop one more service called closed and open loop, so that this closed and open loop majorly used to prepare when we are creating any kind of card schemes, right? So at the same time, right? So if there is any kind of card scheme management we are going to do, this is also one of the key and important element we need to focus. So next one about the mobile money, because this is also one of the core and important element we need to focus. Mobile money as well as mobile banking is also something we need to focus more on. At the same time, one more element to be focused is that peer-to-peer loans, whatever you're going to develop and all. Last but not least, when it comes to the service in context to the backend is itself is concerned, one of the important one is about remittances. So remittances is also one of the key and important element we need to focus. So these are the backend services whenever we are going to develop any kind of payment architecture or solutions is what something we have to focus wherein by implementing some key features like compliances, which include an extensive implementation of internal risk and as well as fraud management. At the same time, we need to develop some external APIs to support external risk scoring tools. At the same time, some kind of payment solutions which majorly supports for direct APIs to payment institutions. All these things are the key features we need to focus more on. So these are the major areas whenever we are trying to develop any kind of payment architecture is concerned. Whenever being a business analyst, whenever we try to provide payment solutions for any of the customer requirements and all, these are the elements we need to focus, right? So backend services followed by the payment architecture as well as the model, which I have shown you, right? So the kind of notifications what we have, right? So you can see the notifications over here, whatever the mail server we have or SMSs, right? So these are all the backend areas where we have to be focused more on the billing and invoicing. This is where you can see the billing and invoices and all everything will be more, right? So we have to create some billing and invoicing, or it can be financing, or it can be self-care, partner managements. So wherein for this, generally we can connect to the cloud environment and we can access the data. At the same time, business rules also important. Business rules designer is also one of the core and important element we have to focus, because depends on the organization to organization, whatever the rules and government mandates has to be taken into consideration. Depends on the business rules, what are the changes required, so that has to be made here subsequently. Next, event handling. We need to focus on the event handling, followed by there is any kind of external APIs which is to be connected with in connect to the customer management, or it's at the same time any kind of real-time executions we wants to perform. Everything can be done, especially whenever we are developing the payment solutions for the customer requirements. Being a business analyst, one has to be identified and one has to be known with. But last but not least, as I specified again in the beginning, as I told you, like backend services has to be identified, because to create some backend operations and backend database management system using some SQL or something. So even this backend services, what is to be performed in the backend is also we have to be identified based on the interaction we had with stakeholders, all that. Right. So this is all about the session today. If you have any questions, please go ahead.